Commander Vexstar stood on the bridge of the Stellar Dominion and looked at the star charts floating before him. The massive ship moved through space like a metal mountain, its hull stretching for miles in every direction. Around him, hundreds of Zephyrian officers worked at their stations, their gray skin glowing softly under the blue lights of the command center. The orders in his hands felt light, but Vexstar knew they carried the weight of an entire world. Earth, the third planet orbiting a yellow star in what humans called the Sol System, was about to become his 17th conquest. His record spoke for itself: 17 worlds brought under Zephyrian rule, 17 species now serving the Empire with loyalty and purpose. "Status report," Vexstar called out, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had never known defeat. "Fleet positioning complete, Commander," replied his second-in-command, Captain Zalin. "All 47 vessels are in formation. Long-range sensors confirm the target world remains unaware of our presence." Vexstar nodded and activated the holographic display showing Earth. The blue and green planet rotated slowly, its single moon hanging nearby like a gray sentinel. Intelligence reports had painted a clear picture of this world and its inhabitants. Humans were a young species, barely 300 years into their industrial age. They had only recently achieved faster-than-light travel, and their longest journeys reached barely beyond their own star system. More importantly, they were divided. The planet held nearly 200 separate nations, each with its own government, military, and interests. Wars between these nations had raged for thousands of years. Even now, intelligence showed active conflicts on 3 continents. Such division made conquest simple: turn the factions against each other, then sweep in to restore order under Zephyrian rule. "Analysis of their military capabilities?" Vexstar asked. Lieutenant Kexra stepped forward, datapad in hand. "Primitive by our standards, Commander. Their most advanced weapons use chemical explosives and basic energy projection. No plasma technology, no gravitational manipulation, no quantum shielding. Their space vessels are crude metal constructs, powered by controlled chemical reactions." Vexstar studied the technical readouts. Human ships looked clumsy compared to Zephyrian vessels. Where Zephyrian technology flowed in elegant curves designed for maximum efficiency, human ships appeared to be assembled from geometric blocks welded together. Their weapons seemed equally basic: metal projectiles fired at high velocity, simple missiles with explosive warheads, and energy beams that would barely scratch Zephyrian armor. "What about their numbers?" he asked. "Significant quantities, but poorly coordinated," Kexra continued. "They maintain separate military forces for each nation, no unified command structure, no standardized equipment. We estimate total human military personnel at approximately 50 million, but they have never fought as a single force." The commander allowed himself a small smile. 50 million soldiers sounded impressive until compared to the unified might of the Zephyrian Empire. His own fleet carried enough firepower to reduce entire continents to rubble. The 47 ships under his command represented technology developed over thousands of years by a civilization that had perfected the art of conquest. "Communications intercepts show they are aware of our existence," reported the intelligence officer. "However, their governments cannot agree on a response. Some call for immediate surrender, others for negotiation, still others for resistance. They waste valuable time in debates and discussions." Vexstar walked to the main viewing screen and watched Earth grow larger as the fleet approached. Such a beautiful world, he thought. Blue oceans, white clouds, green continents. It would make a valuable addition to the Empire. The humans would adapt to Zephyrian rule as all conquered species eventually did. They would learn that unity under the Empire brought peace, prosperity, and purpose. "Commander," called the sensor operator, "we are detecting movement in the outer system. Elaborate. Multiple small craft emerging from concealed positions behind the 4th planet and various asteroids. Approximately 30 vessels, all of human design." Vexstar frowned. The intelligence reports had mentioned human military assets throughout their star system, but concealed positions suggested better tactical thinking than expected. He activated the tactical display and watched red dots representing human ships move across the three-dimensional map. Analysis of their formation? Chaotic, sir? No clear pattern or unified command structure visible. They appear to be moving independently toward our position. The commander studied the display more carefully. The human ships did seem to move without coordination, each following its own path toward the Zephyrian fleet. Some accelerated directly toward the center of his formation, others angled to approach from the sides, and a few hung back as if uncertain what to do. Weapons status? He asked. All defensive systems active, Commander. Plasma batteries charged. Shield generators at full power. Their primitive weapons pose no significant threat to our vessels. Vexstar nodded and opened a communication channel to the entire fleet. All ships, this is command. We are about to encounter token resistance from local forces. Maintain formation and follow standard engagement protocols. Disable rather than destroy when possible. These beings will serve the Empire better alive than dead. The lead human ship, barely a tenth the size of the smallest Zephyrian vessel, continued its approach. Sensors showed it was broadcasting on multiple frequencies, probably attempting to communicate. Vexstar considered responding but decided against it. Negotiation from a position of weakness served no purpose. Better to demonstrate Zephyrian superiority quickly and decisively. Commander, the lead vessel is accelerating beyond safe parameters. For its design, reported the sensor operator. They appear to be pushing their engines to dangerous levels. Desperate courage, Vexstar observed. Admirable but pointless. He watched as the tiny human ship grew larger on the screen. Its hull showed signs of hasty modification. Additional armor plating welded to the exterior, weapon ports cut into the sides, extra engines strapped to the rear. Everything about it spoke of a species scrambling to upgrade their technology in the face of superior opposition. Distance to engagement range? 60 seconds, Commander. Vexstar settled into his command chair and prepared to witness another easy victory. In 60 seconds, this small human force would learn the same lesson 17 other species had learned before them. Superior technology, unified command, and disciplined execution always triumphed over primitive weapons, divided leadership, and desperate courage. The countdown continued as the stellar dominion prepared to add another world to the ever-expanding Zephyrian Empire. The first human ship reached weapons range and Vexstar expected to see it destroyed within seconds. Instead, something impossible happened. The small vessel suddenly changed direction at the last moment, using the gravitational pull of a nearby asteroid to slingshot around the Zephyrian formation. As it passed, it launched dozens of small objects that his sensors initially dismissed as debris. Commander, those objects are not debris, the weapons officer called out urgently. They are some kind of guided projectiles moving too fast for our targeting systems to track effectively. Vexstar watched in surprise as several of the tiny missiles struck his lead destroyer. The impacts should have been meaningless against Zephyrian shields, but somehow the human weapons found weak points in the energy barriers. Small explosions bloomed across the destroyer's hull, and its shield generator flickered. How is that possible? Vexstar demanded. Unknown, sir. The projectiles appear to be using rotating frequencies to match our shield harmonics. They should not have that technology. Before Vexstar could respond, more human ships arrived, but not in the chaotic manner his sensors had initially detected. Now he could see the pattern. Each group of ships moved in carefully coordinated waves, timing their attacks to hit different sections of his fleet simultaneously. What had looked like random movement was actually an elaborate dance designed to confuse Zephyrian sensors. Captain Lisa Martinez commanded the lead human vessel, a modified destroyer called the USS Defiant. Through intercepted communications, Vexstar learned that she had been a cargo ship captain just months ago, hastily retrained for military service. Yet she maneuvered her ship with the skill of a veteran warrior, using techniques that Zephyrian tactical computers could not predict. Sir, we are receiving multiple communication signals from the planet's surface, the communications officer reported. They appear to be coordinating their space and ground forces in real time. Vexstar activated the communication intercepts and listened to human voices speaking in dozens of different languages. Somehow they were translating and coordinating across their various nations even while under attack. General Patricia Hayes at something called NORAD was directing orbital defense platforms while Admiral Henry Clark commanded the space-based forces. Both seemed to be working with commanders from other human nations without any apparent conflict. "This makes no sense," Vexstar muttered. Intelligence reported they were divided into competing factions. "Perhaps they were wrong, sir," suggested Captain Zalin. "No, the intelligence was correct. Look at these communication records from just last month. These same nations were arguing about trade, agreements, and border disputes. Yet now they fight as one force." Lieutenant Commander Jake Sullivan led a wing of smaller human fighters in an attack pattern that defied all logic. His ships moved in formation one moment, then scattered in all directions the next, only to regroup somewhere completely unexpected. Each pilot seemed to know instinctively where the others would be. Despite having primitive communication equipment, Vexstar studied the tactical display as red dots representing human forces moved across the screen like schools of fish, flowing around his larger vessels and striking from unexpected angles. Every time his weapons officers locked onto a target, the humans had already moved to a new position. "Target the communications arrays," he ordered. "If we disrupt their coordination, they will return to their natural chaotic state." "Firing on communication satellites now, Commander." Multiple Zephyrian ships targeted the human communication network, destroying dozens of satellites with precise plasma bursts. For a moment, the human coordination seemed to falter. Then, impossibly, it resumed at the same level as before. "How are they still coordinating?" Vexstar asked. "They appear to be using multiple backup systems, sir. Radio networks, laser communications, even simple light signals between ships. When we destroy one method, they immediately switch to another." Major Carlos Rivera led a special forces team that somehow managed to board one of the Zephyrian scout ships. Vexstar watched in amazement as 12 humans in primitive spacesuits used nothing but cutting tools and explosives to breach the scout ship's hull. Once inside, they moved through the corridors with deadly efficiency, disabling Zephyrian crew members with weapons that should have been completely ineffective. "How did they penetrate our hull?" Vexstar demanded. "They targeted the waste disposal port, sir. No one thought to heavily armor those sections because no logical enemy would attempt entry through such a narrow passage. But that would require them to know our ship designs intimately." "Yes, sir. Somehow they have detailed intelligence on our vessel specifications." Dr. Amy Thompson and Professor Ryan Mitchell coordinated from what the humans called MIT, sharing scientific data across their global network faster than Zephyrian computers could analyze it. Within hours of the first engagement, they had developed new weapon configurations specifically designed to penetrate Zephyrian defenses. Their ability to adapt and innovate in real time exceeded anything Vexstar had seen in 17 previous conquests. "Commander, we are detecting significant changes in their weapon output," the science officer reported. "They are modifying their energy frequencies to better match our defensive systems." "How long did it take them to make these modifications?" "Approximately 4 hours, sir." Vexstar stared at the tactical display in disbelief. It had taken Zephyrian scientists decades to develop their current weapon systems. The humans had analyzed and countered them in less than a day. The battle continued. For hours, then days, then weeks. Every time Vexstar adapted his tactics to counter human strategies, the humans developed new approaches. When he concentrated his firepower, they scattered and attacked from multiple directions. When he spread his forces thin, they concentrated their attacks on isolated vessels. Captain Daniel Foster commanded a lunar base that should have been destroyed in the first hour of fighting. Instead, he somehow kept it operational for 3 weeks, using mining equipment as weapons and turning the moon's low gravity to his advantage. His forces launched projectiles using magnetic accelerators designed for moving or turning industrial equipment into artillery, Pilot Tracy Johnson flew a fighter craft barely larger than a Zephyrian shuttlecraft, yet she had personally disabled two Zephyrian destroyers using tactics that no computer simulation had ever predicted. She used the debris from destroyed ships as cover, hiding behind floating wreckage to launch surprise attacks on larger vessels. "Sir, our casualties are mounting," Captain Zalin reported grimly. "We have lost 6 vessels and suffered significant damage to 12 others. At this rate, we may need to request reinforcements." Vexstar could not believe what he was hearing. Reinforcements against a primitive species that had barely discovered faster-than-light travel. The very idea would make him a laughingstock throughout. The Empire. Yet the evidence was undeniable. The humans were not just resisting, they were winning. 3 weeks into what should have been a 3-day conquest, Vexstar witnessed something that changed his understanding of warfare forever. A damaged Zephyrian transport ship drifted helplessly after taking heavy fire from human forces. Its crew of 43 soldiers was trapped inside, slowly dying as life support systems failed. Standard military doctrine demanded that enemy wounded be ignored or eliminated to prevent future resistance. Instead, Vexstar watched in amazement as Captain Monica Davis broke formation with her squadron to approach the crippled alien vessel. Her ship, the USS Guardian, extended docking clamps to the Zephyrian transport and began emergency life support procedures. Through communication intercepts, he heard her coordinating with her medical officer to provide aid to the trapped Zephyrian. "Soldiers, this makes no tactical sense," Vexstar muttered, studying the display. "She is risking her ship and crew to save enemy combatants." Sergeant Kevin Murphy led the rescue operation, wearing a basic human space suit that looked primitive compared to Zephyrian equipment. Yet he moved efficiently through the damaged alien ship, applying emergency medical treatment to wounded Zephyrian soldiers. His techniques were crude but effective, using human medical supplies adapted for alien biology. "Commander, we are receiving a transmission from the human rescue vessel," the communications officer reported. "Put it through." A female voice filled the bridge, speaking in accented English that the translation computers quickly converted. "Zephyrian vessel. This is Captain Davis of the Earth Defense Force. We have 41 survivors aboard our ship receiving medical treatment. 2 of your crew members did not survive their injuries. We will transfer the survivors to your fleet under temporary ceasefire conditions." Vexstar stared at the communication panel in disbelief. "She wants to return our soldiers to us?" "It appears so, sir. She is requesting safe passage to transfer the rescued personnel." This behavior violated every principle of warfare that Vexstar understood. Enemy combatants should be eliminated or captured for interrogation, not rescued and returned. Yet the humans seemed to consider the preservation of life more important than military advantage. Dr. Helen Carter worked alongside alien physiology she had never encountered before, using medical knowledge gained from captured Zephyrian equipment to treat wounds that human medicine was never designed to handle. Her patient was a young Zephyrian lieutenant who had been badly burned when his station exploded. Despite losing her own brother in the first day of fighting, she worked tirelessly to save the alien soldier's life. "Status report on the human rescue operation," Vexstar demanded. "They have successfully stabilized all surviving crew members and are requesting coordinates for prisoner transfer," his communications officer replied. They also sent detailed medical data about Zephyrian physiology that they discovered during treatment. "They are sharing medical intelligence with us?" "Yes, sir. Information that could help us treat our own wounded more effectively." Vexstar activated his personal communication device and opened a direct channel to the human rescue ship. "Captain Davis, this is Commander Vexstar of the Zephyrian Third Fleet. Explain your actions." A pause, then the human woman's voice responded. "Commander, we fight to defend our world, not to cause unnecessary suffering. Your people are wounded and need medical care. That makes them patients, not enemies, but we are invading your planet. We seek to conquer your species. That doesn't change the fact that injured beings need help. We'll fight you with everything. We have, but we won't abandon our principles while doing it." Vexstar ended the communication and stood in confused silence. In 17 previous conquests, he had never encountered a species that maintained moral standards during combat. Most civilizations abandoned such concepts when facing extinction, focusing solely on survival. Colonel Nancy White coordinated with Russian General Vladimir Petrov to establish medical zones for treating wounded from both sides. Intelligence reports had indicated these two nations were traditional enemies, yet they worked together seamlessly when faced with alien invasion. Chinese Admiral Liu Wei contributed medical supplies, while Brazilian Commander Rafael Santos provided transportation for wounded personnel. "Sir, we are detecting unusual communication patterns from the human forces," the intelligence officer reported. "They appear to be debating something." "Debating what?" "Military strategy, sir. Multiple human commanders are engaged in what appears to be an argument about tactical approaches. They are questioning each other's orders in the middle of active combat." Vexstar accessed the communication intercepts and listened to human military leaders engaged in heated discussions about everything from target selection to rules of engagement. General Frank Baker argued with Admiral Susan Clark about the ethics of targeting Zephyrian supply lines, while Commander Beth Rodriguez questioned whether certain weapons should be used against alien personnel. They are arguing with their own commanders during battle? Vexstar asked in amazement. "Yes, sir. They seem to debate every major decision, even when under direct attack. Such behavior should have resulted in chaos and defeat, yet somehow the human forces continue to operate effectively despite constant internal disagreement. Their ability to argue, reach consensus, and adapt their plans in real time gave them an unpredictability that Zephyrian tactical computers could not model." Lieutenant Sarah Phillips evacuated civilian populations from areas under bombardment, working with international humanitarian organizations to move refugees to safety. Captain Jason Parker coordinated with these same organizations to establish neutral zones where non-combatants from both species could receive protection. The humans fought desperately to defend their world while simultaneously working to minimize casualties on both sides. "Commander, we have captured a human pilot," Captain Zalin reported. "Lieutenant Chris Anderson was shot down during a reconnaissance mission. Bring him to the interrogation center immediately." "Sir, there may be a problem with that order. Explain." "The pilot was injured during capture. Our medical staff treated his wounds according to standard procedure, but the human medical officer we rescued earlier insisted on supervising the treatment. She claimed human physiology required different approaches." Vexstar found himself in the medical bay watching Dr. Carter work alongside Zephyrian medics to treat the captured human pilot. The young man should have been terrified, surrounded by alien beings in a hostile environment. Instead, he spoke politely with his captors and even thanked them for medical treatment. "How do you feel about being captured by an enemy force?" Vexstar asked the human directly. Lieutenant Anderson looked up from his medical bed with clear, steady eyes. "You're not my enemy, sir. You're my opponent in a conflict." "There's a difference." "Explain this difference." "An enemy is someone you hate, someone you want to destroy completely. An opponent is someone you fight against for specific reasons, but you can still respect them as individuals." "You've treated my injuries and allowed your medical staff to learn from Dr. Carter? That tells me you value life, even enemy life." Vexstar left the medical bay more confused than ever. Everything about human warfare contradicted standard military logic, yet their forces continued to resist effectively after 3 weeks of intense combat. They fought with passion while maintaining compassion, showed creativity while following moral principles, and somehow grew stronger through their apparent internal divisions. For the first time in his long military career, Commander Vexstar began to question whether victory through superior force was truly the only path to success. The message from Zephyrian High Command arrived on a secure channel during the 4th week of what had become an embarrassing stalemate. Vexstar read the orders 3 times, hoping he had misunderstood something in the translation. The words remained clear and terrible each time he reviewed them. "Deploy planetary bombardment weapons immediately. Sterilize the surface of Earth within 72 hours. The Empire grows impatient with this prolonged resistance. Vexstar stared at the holographic display showing Earth in all its blue and green beauty. Billions of humans lived on that world, most of them civilians who had nothing to do with the military resistance his fleet faced. The bombardment weapons would turn the entire planet into a lifeless rock, eliminating every trace of human civilization. Commander. High Command is requesting confirmation of receipt, his communications officer reported. Acknowledged. Tell them I am reviewing deployment procedures. Vexstar walked to his private quarters and sealed the door behind him. For the first time in his military career, he felt uncertain about following orders. Everything he had witnessed over the past month challenged his understanding of warfare, civilization, and what it meant to be a soldier. He activated his personal terminal and reviewed the intelligence files on human behavior that had been compiled during the conflict. The data painted a picture of a species unlike any the Zephyrian Empire had ever encountered. Humans fought with incredible determination while maintaining ethical standards that should have made them weak. They argued constantly yet somehow reached effective consensus. They showed compassion to enemies while defending their world with ruthless efficiency. Captain Monica Davis had visited the Zephyrian medical facility 6 more times, bringing wounded aliens rescued from damaged ships. Each time she risked her own vessel and crew to save lives that military doctrine said should be left to die. Her actions had saved over 200 Zephyrian soldiers, yet she continued to fight against the invasion with unwavering determination. Dr. Robert Klein had worked alongside Zephyrian medical staff to develop new treatment protocols that saved lives on both sides of the conflict. The human doctor shared his knowledge freely, teaching alien medics about human anatomy while learning about Zephyrian physiology. His contributions had reduced casualty rates for both species, even as the fighting continued. Engineer Mary Phillips led a team that had achieved a breakthrough in shield harmonics technology that could potentially end the war in humanity's favor. Her research group had discovered a way to disrupt Zephyrian defensive systems using modified human equipment. Yet instead of immediately deploying this advantage, the humans had spent 3 days debating the ethical implications of using such technology. Vexstar had listened to recordings of their discussions with growing amazement. Professor Alan Moore argued that using the new technology would give humans an unfair advantage that might lead to unnecessary Zephyrian casualties. Commander Beth Rodriguez countered that defending Earth required using every available resource. Dr. Lisa Chun suggested sharing the technology with Zephyrian medical teams so both sides could benefit from the research. They'd debate whether to use a weapon that could save their planet, Vexstar muttered to himself. What kind of species does that? The answer had become clear over weeks of observation. Humans were a species that valued the method of victory as much as victory itself. They would rather lose while maintaining their principles than win by abandoning everything they believed in. Such thinking should have made them easy to defeat, yet somehow it made them stronger. Lieutenant Chris Anderson had been released in a prisoner exchange 3 days earlier. Before leaving the Zephyrian ship, he had spent hours talking with his former captors about everything from military tactics to philosophy. Several Zephyrian soldiers reported being deeply affected by their conversations with the young human pilot. He said we were just following orders and that he understood the difficulty of our position, reported Sergeant Kexival. He said humans had faced similar moral challenges throughout their history and that individual soldiers should not be blamed for the decisions of their leaders. Anderson had also left behind a collection of human literature, music, and art that he claimed would help the Zephyrians understand human culture. Vexstar had reviewed these materials and found himself strangely moved by human creativity and emotional expression. Their art spoke of struggle, hope, love, and loss in ways that Zephyrian culture had never explored. Pilot Tracy Johnson had achieved something unprecedented in the 4th week of fighting. After disabling a Zephyrian scout ship, she had personally rescued the alien crew and transported them to safety. During the rescue operation, she had been severely injured by an explosion. The Zephyrian pilot she was rescuing, Sub-Lieutenant Veltar, had risked his own life to carry the unconscious human woman to the medical bay of her own ship. "She saved my life when she could have left me to die," Veltar reported during his debriefing. "When the explosion occurred, her first concern was my safety, not her own. I had never encountered such behavior from an enemy combatant." The story had spread throughout both fleets, creating confusion among Zephyrian forces who had been trained to view all enemies as threats to be eliminated. How could they hate a species that risked their lives to save alien soldiers? How could they destroy a civilization that showed such compassion even during warfare? Vexstar returned to the bridge and found Captain Zalin waiting with an urgent report. "Commander, we have received intelligence about human weapons development that you need to review immediately." "What kind of development?" "They have completed work on the shield disruption technology, sir. Our analysts believe they could disable our entire fleet within hours if they chose to deploy it." Vexstar accessed the intelligence data and confirmed the analysis. Human scientists had indeed developed a weapon system capable of neutralizing Zephyrian defenses. They possessed the ability to end the war decisively in their favor. "Why haven't they used it?" he asked. "Unknown, sir. Intelligence suggests they are still debating the ethical implications of deploying such technology. There appears to be significant disagreement among their leadership about whether using it would constitute excessive force." Vexstar stood in stunned silence. The humans had developed a weapon that could save their planet, yet they hesitated to use it because they worried about causing too much harm to their invaders. Such thinking defied every principle of warfare and survival that he understood. The orders from High Command lay on his command station, waiting for implementation. 72 hours to begin planetary bombardment. 72 hours to destroy a species that had shown him a completely different way to exist, to fight and to maintain honor even in the face of extinction for the first time in his long military career. Commander Vexstar faced a choice between following orders and following his conscience. Vexstar stood alone in his quarters, staring at the communication device that could change the course of two civilizations. The orders from High Command were clear, but so was his conscience. He had seen too much, learned too much, to simply follow the path of destruction that the Empire demanded. The decision crystallized when he received a final intelligence report about human behavior during the conflict. Despite having the technology to disable the entire Zephyrian fleet, human leaders continued to debate its use. President William Hayes had called for a global vote among all Earth nations before deploying the weapon. They would rather risk their own extinction than act without moral consensus. "Such beings do not deserve annihilation," Vexstar whispered to himself. He activated his personal communication array and sent a message on frequencies he knew the humans monitored. The transmission was brief, but would change everything. "This is Commander Vexstar of the Zephyrian Third Fleet requesting immediate communication with Earth leadership. I have information vital to the survival of your species." The response came within minutes. Secretary of Defense Catherine Murphy and several other human officials appeared on his screen, their faces showing a mixture of suspicion and hope. Behind them, Vexstar could see the flags of multiple Earth nations, evidence of the unprecedented cooperation that continued to amaze him. "Commander Vexstar, this is Secretary Murphy. We are prepared to listen to what you have to say. I wish to meet in person to discuss terms for ending this conflict. I am prepared to provide complete intelligence on Zephyrian military capabilities in exchange for asylum on your world." The silence that followed stretched for nearly a full minute. Finally, President Hayes stepped forward into the communication. "Range. Commander, are you saying you wish to defect to Earth?" "I am saying that I can no longer serve an empire that orders the destruction of a species as remarkable as yours. My conscience will not permit me to carry out the bombardment orders I have received." "What bombardment orders?" Secretary Murphy asked, her voice sharp with concern. Vexstar took a deep breath and committed himself fully to his chosen path. "High Command has ordered me to sterilize your planet within 48 hours. I am refusing those orders and requesting sanctuary among your people." The revelation sent shock waves through the human leadership. Vexstar watched as they immediately began coordinating response plans, their ability to organize under pressure, once again demonstrating the qualities that had impressed him throughout the conflict. Admiral Susan Clark began mobilizing defense forces while General Peter Robinson coordinated with international military commands. "We need proof that you are sincere about this defection," President Hayes said carefully. "I will transmit complete technical specifications for all Zephyrian weapons and defensive systems. I will also provide tactical intelligence that will allow you to defeat the remaining vessels in my fleet." Within hours, Vexstar had sent detailed files containing everything the humans needed to end the war decisively. The information included shield frequencies, weapon capabilities, and tactical doctrines that would give Earth forces an overwhelming advantage. More importantly, it included the locations and specifications of the planetary bombardment weapons that threatened their world. Captain George Martinez led the final human offensive using Vexstar-S intelligence. The coordinated attack disabled the bombardment ships before they could target Earth's surface. Colonel Linda Thompson coordinated ground-based weapons that neutralized Zephyrian communication arrays, preventing the fleet from calling for reinforcements. The remaining Zephyrian ships, finding themselves outmaneuvered and technologically matched, requested terms for withdrawal. Captain Zalin, now in command of the fleet, agreed to leave the system in exchange for safe passage and the return of Zephyrian personnel. "You have doomed yourself," Zalin told Vexstar during their final communication. "The Empire will brand you a traitor. You can never return home." "I know," Vexstar replied calmly, "but I have found something here worth more than my previous life." The transfer to Earth took place 3 days later at a neutral space station established between the two fleets. Vexstar left his ship carrying only personal belongings and the weight of a decision that would reshape his existence. As he stepped aboard the human transport vessel, he felt simultaneously terrified and liberated. Dr. Lavra Bennett, an anthropologist, Professor Carl Wright were assigned to help Vexstar adapt to human society. The process proved more challenging than anyone anticipated. Human culture, with its emphasis on individual choice and constant debate, overwhelmed someone raised in the rigid hierarchy of the Empire. "How do you function when everyone argues about everything?" Vexstar asked during one of his orientation sessions. "The arguing is how we figure out the best solutions," Dr. Bennett explained. "We believe that many perspectives lead to better decisions than one perspective, even if the process takes longer. But it should create chaos and inefficiency. Sometimes it does. But it also creates innovation, adaptation, and moral growth. The process matters as much as the result." Vexstar testified before the United Nations about Zephyrian military doctrine and the Empire's expansionist goals. His detailed knowledge helped Earth prepare defenses for future alien contact, while also providing insights into the psychology of conquered species. Senator Edward Phillips and Ambassador Grace Turner worked to establish protocols for other Zephyrian refugees who might follow Vexstar-S example. The former commander's defection had created unprecedented unrest within the Empire as subject species learned about concepts like individual rights and principled warfare. "Your reports about human society have reached 17 different worlds," Ambassador Turner informed him during a briefing. "We are receiving communication requests from resistance groups throughout Zephyrian space." The impact of Vexstar-S defection extended far beyond military intelligence. His detailed accounts of human behavior spread through underground networks within the Empire, inspiring subject species to question their own submission. The idea that a decorated Zephyrian commander had chosen exile over obedience shook the foundations of imperial authority. Years later, Vexstar served as cultural liaison for the growing number of alien refugees seeking Earth's protection. He had learned to appreciate human concepts like democracy, individual conscience, and moral complexity. The chaos he had initially feared had become a source of strength and inspiration. "I thought humans were primitives because they fight each other," he wrote in his final report to the galactic community. "I now understand they are advanced because they choose how to fight, when to fight, and what is worth fighting for." They have taught me that true strength lies not in the ability to conquer, but in the wisdom to know what conquest costs. The message spread across the galaxy, reaching species that had never heard of Earth or humans. Some dismissed it as the ravings of a broken commander. Others began to ask questions about their own governments and the nature of true civilization. Vexstar had found sanctuary on a world that valued conscience over obedience, and in doing so had planted seeds of change that would reshape the galaxy for generations to come.